Hey there everyone, Video Game Cabinet here, and tonight we're doing a review on the Resident Evil 4 remake for PlayStation 5, released in 2023. I have spent a little over a week running through the 2023 remake of Resident Evil 4 on the standard difficulty. The results screen after the end credits says I logged 18 and a half hours into my save file, but the results tab in the main menu says I have put about 30 hours total into the game. This discrepancy must have been due to me dying so many times because this game was quite difficult. This 2023 iteration of Resident Evil 4 on the PlayStation 5 is a remake of the famous 2005 GameCube title. I played and beat the original version of RE4 back when it first released almost 20 years ago, and I remember how groundbreaking it was for its presentation and gameplay. 2005's RE4 dramatically mixed up the Resident Evil formula in many important ways. The game sported a behind-the-shoulder perspective instead of fixed camera angles, completely changing the way combat felt. There were also no more zombies. Instead, there were infected villagers that were much faster and more aggressive than the zombies from previous Resident Evil games. There was even a little more focus on action in general, and just a little less emphasis on puzzles compared to the previous entries in the series. I love the original RE4, and it was one of the best and most important games of the 6th console generation. As fondly as I remember the 2005 classic, this 2023 remake blew me away with how much it updated the original story, gameplay, and graphics with the power of the PlayStation 5. These graphics might technically be the best I have yet seen, with astonishing detail in the lifelike environments, as well as beautiful character models with photorealistic facial expressions. The combat is also more advanced now, with smoother melee attacks, parries you can do with your knife that degenerates with each use, and even a little stealth thrown in. The story in the remake follows closely to the basic flow of the originals, but enough key plot points are either changed or deepened to keep the hardcore fans in suspense while staying faithful to the original vision. Resident Evil 4 Remake is the hardest survival horror game I have ever played. The tension that builds as the villagers swarm you quickly becomes overwhelming unless you think and act fast. These enemies are relentless once they spot you and never give up. It's absolutely terrifying and often gets very stressful. Resources for ammo and healing are truly limited as you frantically try to figure out how to handle each enemy group encounter. This accurately feels like a fight to survive the horror that infests the impoverished Spanish village where the game takes place. The boss battles were also extremely challenging, especially the showdown with Ramon Salazar later in the campaign. I loved experiencing the story of Leon Kennedy rescuing Ashley Graham from the Los Illuminados cult all over again in this revision of Resident Evil 4. It has been about 20 years since I played the GameCube original, so my memory of what happened has faded, but this PS5 remake captivated and thrilled me with its own great storytelling. The bond between Leon and Ashley instantly felt deep and touching thanks to strong performances by Nick Apostolides and Genevieve Buchner. Resident Evil 4 Remake was like a really good horror movie that I could not stop watching until I saw the protagonists persevere to the end and survive. I rate the 2023 remake of Resident Evil 4 the same score that I rated the original RE4 back in 2005, and that is a 9 out of 10. And that's my review. Yeah, this was really great to finally run through. I remember loving the original 2005 game back when it came out, and but I played it and beat it back then once and never again. I know it's been re-released on many other consoles, even in VR and stuff like that. But I was excited to play this remake, And, at first, when they announced this, I was thinking, well, first of all, I wanted a Code Veronica remake first. Hopefully Capcom will get to that soon. But, I was thinking, did the original Resident Evil 4 really need a remake? It felt a little bit more newer and influential of modern games compared to the older games that were being remade, like Resident Evil 2 was remade in, something like 2019 or so. That Resident Evil 2 felt like it needed a remake. Resident Evil 4, I wasn't sure, but I think that was nostalgia goggles talking, because I actually, right before, or right as I was beginning playing this, I popped in the original Resident Evil 4 on GameCube, and I messed around with it a little bit, and it does feel pretty dated. If you might remember it as being really great, but it's been, now it's been about, almost 20 years later since that original version came out. It does, if you go back and see how it controls, it's not quite as fluid as you might remember. This new remake, though, is like fully polished, like a 9th generation game, and it's just amazing what they've done, jumping 3 generations later and retelling the same story, with some minor tweaks here and there, and just really taking advantage of today's technology. But just from messing around with the original for 10 minutes, recently in the last couple months, you can tell right away, like things like Leon's kick are way smoother in this one than the original. If you go back and play the original, and the way Leon does his melee attacks with his kick, it feels and looks a lot more awkward than what they did here, making everything a lot smoother. And here they have the parries. They did a lot with the combat that really definitely upgraded, the already great original, but dated original so much. And the original story, like I said, it's been almost 20 years since I played it, so there's a lot of plot points that faded into memory. But just while I was playing through this, I skimmed through a little bit of a YouTube playthrough of that 2005 original to kind of remind myself of what was going on. And this one does follow closely to a lot of the beats of the original, but there's a lot of things they change and deepen, and a couple little twists happen here and there to the original, which is cool. But eventually soon I should probably go back and replay that original on the GameCube. It is a classic, but this remake really goes a long way in updating everything and making it feel fresh again, and changing a lot of things, and just making it so much better with the graphics. And I mean, my God, like I said, this might be technically the best looking game I've played yet, technically speaking, with just how sharp and everything the graphics are and how realistic the facial animations look. So, but yeah, just like the Dead Space remake, I think that one also came out in 2023. Like, I didn't think the original needed a remake, but then the remakes of both this and Dead Space proved me wrong. They really did a lot with today's technology to update that game and this game. So, yeah, I'm just glad I got this off the backlog. It was very challenging. I don't remember the original being this hard, but I played on standard difficulty, which says if you haven't played the original, and then there's assisted difficulty, which is easy, and then there's an advanced difficulty setting. I forget exactly what it's called, but it says if you have played the original. I'm glad I did not pick that advanced difficulty setting, because just the standard was hard enough. Oh my God. It's, and these enemies, they swarm around you so much that, like, this game has a lot of options for combat with stealth and the parries and all the upgrades you can do to the weapons. And you're going to need all of that, because trust me, you run out of resources quick. They are hard to find. They're there. You find resources as you go along, but it's just barely enough to keep you alive. And it really feels like survival horror. They did a brilliant job with that. I know this is when the series started leaning a little bit more towards action. And they went further with that with later entries that I haven't played yet. I just read about them. But they started leaning a little bit more into action here than puzzles. But this one still very much feels like survival horror with all these horrific enemies coming at you and you just getting overwhelmed and stressed out in a good way. And it's thrilling, and the bond with Ashley and Leon is really emotional, and it's just great, great stuff. So I'm glad I got it done. It's been almost 2 years since this came out in early 2023, and now I just finished it on December 31st, 2024. So, a year and several months later, I finally got around to beating this. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the Resident Evil 4 remake on PlayStation 5. 9 out of 10. Great, great game. Go out and play it if you haven't already, and have a good night.